guys, today on the channel we are gearing up for the upcoming race season and trying to get my car prepared for that. Got him. And... oh my god, close. Now, even though my car is a 2009, it still doesn't have enough kilometers to warrant having the diff fluid changed or the transmission fluid changed. But still, with a little bit of gear noise in the back and just taking it to the strip for multiple passes over the years, I figured it was probably a good idea to be a little bit proactive and get it ready for this upcoming race season by changing out the diff fluid in the back, the transmission fluid, and the brake fluid, just getting it all changed and all flushed. But everybody knows about oil changes, so today we're gonna cover the other stuff that's very important as well, but stuff that kind of can fly under the radar, kind of get forgotten about a little bit, especially for those of us that are driving our cars fairly hard. We're racing them at the track, driving them pretty hard on the street, you know, kind of driving a Challenger how a Challenger is supposed to be driven. These are things that everybody should know and need to look at probably before the required maintenance. Probably not a bad idea to look at that. So the main reason I decided to do this big overhaul on all the fluids in the car, basically aside from the fact that it's almost due, not quite, I have 72,000 kilometers on this car, even though it's a 2009. Not a ton of kilometers for the year, but I figured, you know, 80,000 kilometers is what they require for diff fluid change and transmission fluid change, stuff like that. So a little bit ahead of the curve, but my differential at the end of last season, I don't know if you guys remember, I made a video where I put in the diff brace and we were talking about clunking coming from the back of the car being a manual. Now, a lot of manual owners do report having a bit of flunking and stuff in the car. It's not as tight and constantly under tension as the automatics, so there tends to be a little bit of clunk, especially if you're letting off in a low gear. Sometimes it like kind of clunks a little bit. So to tackle this, I reached out to my good buddy Matt. Now, me and Matt met actually because he's a subscriber of the channel, and we actually went to compare our cars, stock versus my modified RT. Reached out to Matt because Matt is a mechanic, and Matt had some good insight on best diff fluid to order, best transmission fluid for the car. And on top of that, doing the brakes properly. Bleeding brakes is always such a pain because you have to get all the air out of them. It can be a real pain, especially for somebody like me that does not really bleed brakes. It's just great to have somebody there to give me a hand with that, willing to help me out. So I know that there's no air in those brake lines, and he kind of made that job really simple and really quick. So I headed over to Matt's house in his garage and we got started. Now, Matt has this exceptionally cool hydraulic lift in his garage that gives quite a bit of ground clearance underneath the car. I swear to God, I need one of these things, because if you watch my exhaust install video, I mean, even my header video from years ago, you literally have the car practically on my chest crawling under there. There's not a lot of space. It's not great just doing it off of jack stands. With this system, it's all hydraulic, push of a button, it raises the car up and actually raises it up really high. You can comfortably get under there. You can actually use a creeper because you have enough room to roll under there without smacking your head off of stuff underneath the car. I'm kind of jealous of the system. Thanks for that, Matt. So after we raise the car up, the first thing we do is check the diff fluid and see what kind of consistency, what kind of thickness, if there's any metal or anything in it. Just kind of check out the fluid and see what we're looking at. I mean, yeah, that's pretty gross. It's pretty solid looking.
Just metal.
I mean, it looks like, I would say it looks like coffee, but coffee's not that thick. So.
Burnt coffee?
Yeah.
Actually, it's definitely, yeah. Hey, you're before 80,000, you're before manufacturer recommended.
I 100% am. Yeah. Now, just for the record, diff fluid is definitely not supposed to be the color of like black coffee. It's supposed to be completely clear. So we were definitely due for a change in the diff fluid. The other thing we wanted to do is after we got the diff fluid out, we wanted to get a camera in there. We wanted to get Matt's scope in so we could check out and kind of see what kind of clearance we have between the gears. And you'll notice we grab the axles and start twisting them and just kind of seeing when they catch, when they're about to start catching that differential gear. And that'll give you an idea of how much play there is in that differential. We just kind of wanted to see for ourselves because my car had a fair bit of clunking. I just kind of wanted to see where that was coming from. We had a really hard time pinpointing it. So with the diff fluid out and the scope in there, we can get a really good look and kind of see exactly what's happening and what kind of clearances there are to those gears and the axle of the differential.
So that's your backlash. That's just the meshing between the gears.
Interesting.
So that is quite a bit. Mine, you can barely move side to side. Like they pretty much touch.
Right.
So in the newer ones, they tightened them right up. So that's just the clatter between the teeth.
Right.
Like most of that clunk and noise and everything is just from that diff.
Just from the diff itself?
And whether there's some like side gear or the other internals to the diff have a little bit of movement too.
Right.
And then you got that big puck style that's just a rubber bouncer.
Yeah.
That's maybe, you know, people kind of get it to stop doing that by doing a drive shaft just because it's more solid and doesn't do that because once your clutch has springs, it's gonna start doing that, and then you get your rubber everything and then you might even be able to control it better because you'll have better feel for it. It's more direct.
Yeah.
Because I was looking, these are just rubber and rubber.
Yeah.
With like threads in them. So it's definitely a really wonky system. It doesn't look terrible in there.
Like at least it's not beat up and chipped up,
like it's
and
not.
you know what I mean?
Everything's smooth, from what I can see. I mean, yes, it's got some wear. Interesting. Okay. Well, no catastrophic failures.
No. That's always good. So the gear oil that Matt picked out for my car is 100% synthetic AMSOIL gear oil in a 75/140 weight.
So this is what your fluid should look like.
Yeah. That's really clear. It doesn't look like coffee.
I thought it came black.
Oh yeah, isn't that the deal?
Pre-black.
Yeah, you clearly bought the wrong stuff.
I couldn't. Did I tell you Chrysler reused my diff fluid out of my old diff?
Really?
When they did my warranty one?
That's pretty sketchy.
I read it on the service order and I was like, no way. And then I kind of forgot about it and I went to go do my diff fluid and I dumped it and it was black and silvery. I'm like, that's right. They really in a brand new diff.
That's pretty
put new fluid in it. Charged me for it. Just Jesus Christ! But because it's warranty.
Dealerships are brutal, man. They don't
that's
care.
crazy.
They literally don't care.
If I would have known that, I would have dumped it that night.
I wouldn't take my car to get worked on at a dealership if it's the last place on earth.
Yeah, the only reason I go there is because it's warranty.
If you had warranty and it was going to be free.
Once it's that, it'll never go back.
No, yeah, they're brutal. Now the refilling process for the differential is we basically take a syringe, suck it out of the bottle, and use that syringe to fill it back up and keep doing that until the entire thing is full. It's kind of primitive, but it's a really simple way to get that gear oil into the differential on your back laying on the floor. Now the problem with changing the transmission fluid in a manual transmission on the Challenger is that the cross member is directly underneath the drain plug, which is frustrating. As soon as you're about to let go of that drain plug, you know you're gonna get fluid all inside that cross member and it's gonna sit there. You're gonna have to try to clean it out. Like it really does make a mess. So we kind of were trying to come up with a way that we could make a little dam to kind of block it off and try to get that fluid to deflect and just go into the drain pan. It didn't work whatsoever. It was everywhere. No matter what, we had to clean it all out. There's just no good way of doing that. So just know that when you go to clean out your transmission fluid, you are probably going to have it all over the cross member. You're probably gonna have to clean everything out. So it's just the way she goes, I'm afraid. They're a little bigger.
That should work. I can hold this. I won't drench your... Like...
Do you need like some
What's that?
some zip ties or something to hold it?
It's kind of a finesse. Gotta hold it with one hand. All right, we're just gonna send it and see what happens.
There we
Can
go.
always wipe the exhaust off.
Yeah, she's coming down a bit.
Yep. Figured that was gonna be how it rolled.
Yep. She's a little,
I saved some of it.
it's a little drainy.
We'll just have to wash your cross member out.
Yep, might have to, yeah. So for transmission fluid, we decided to go with the AMSOIL synthetic transmission fluid. Same deal with the rest of their lineup of products. Top of the line stuff at AMSOIL, and that's what we decided to go with. Now when we go to refill the transmission fluid, we do it the exact same way that we did the rear differential fluid. Use a syringe. With two guys, it makes it way easier because one guy can be under the car, the other guy can be filling fluid and passing him the syringe, and the guy under the car can fill it up, hand him back the empty. It's kind of like passing back and forth, but it does make it a lot easier because refilling the transmission takes a lot more than the rear differential, obviously. So it's a lot more times to refill. You go through a lot more bottles, so it's more time consuming. Now, having two guys, that avoids having to come in and out from underneath the car. Teamwork makes the dream work, and actually made it fairly easy to get that transmission fluid changed.
This is going much faster.
So for brake fluid, we decided to go with Super Dot 4, which is a super dry brake fluid. So the first step that we took in replacing the brake fluid, we had to empty the reservoir. Now, draining the reservoir fluid isn't so bad except for trying to remove the hose off the side of it from inside the cowl without taking everything apart. It's kind of annoying to get at. We have towels set up in there and try to make sure that brake fluid touch nothing. As everybody knows, brake fluid can really mess up your paint or any finished surfaces. So if you get brake fluid on anything, just a word to the wise, use plain old soap and water to take it off. It does a great job and will clean any residue or any fraction of the brake fluid off of any surface that it gets on. So to start draining the system, we want to start with the furthest away brake caliper away from the reservoir as possible. Start there and kind of work your way back to the reservoir is the proper way to do it. So that's what we did.
It'll change color soon.
Yeah.
You won't be able to see it, it'll be clear.
So there you have it. After taking a little bit of time to replace all the fluids and make sure that the car is 100% and ready to go for this race season, we're ready to hit the track. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. We'll talk to you later. Cheers.